This conference will now be recorded.
We had discussed about taxation last class, and we understood how the configuration we should do for taxation, and we understood how to do the sales CGS IGST we have completed. So let us go further and understand how to do other things like say for example how input taxation can be done and CGST SGST is a simple explanation. So now we also understood that okay here to create the tax codes which calculates the percentage which is connected to a GL account. So if you want to create a tax code for the purpose of input means the taxes on purchases. The taxes on purchases to get that input taxation, we should create a tax code. If you want to create a tax code, we should have condition type and accounting key to that. So what we are going to do here. So let us create tax code. What is the taxation of input which we discussed? So the taxes on purchases. I had discussed about the GST, like here, I need to pay to the government, and here without tax we understood that, and with the GST it's going to be added. Why we have to do that? Because so the person who pays the taxes, whichever is collected from customers, he is going to deduct the taxes whichever he paid already to the government through vendor purchases. Now you should have an account that how much he collected and how much he paid. So now we understood that how to collect the taxes will go with the GST of sales. Now let us understand if you are purchasing something, how the GST is going to be calculated. We'll go here. So to create tax codes, we should have the condition type first. I'm going to use the tag condition type MWVS. It's a standard condition type which you are going to use it. And the accounting key we can use for VST for the purpose of input tax. So the input tax code I create V1 and for 5% only. And the GL account which I am going to assign to this is 240013. The same flow. Let us move one by one. So first thing is tax procedure. Go to tax procedure, add this condition types and the accounting key. Okay, Arshita, I got your message. So first OBQ3. Find out your tax procedure. My tax procedure which I created is 6-digit code, that is B-21TP. So to this procedure, I'm going to add one more condition. So one more means first, second is done. The third one I'm going to add 3. It is 0 always. Here MWVS, whichever the condition type which I highlighted here. And the from is always first one, B SP, whatever you enter, if you want to calculate from there. Next is accounting key. Accounting key is going to be VST. So we added this condition. Now, parallel to this condition, I'm going to create a tax code. Before that, I should make sure that so assigning of the this procedure. So we already assigned, but as it's a single system for many people, so they might have created their own thing and they have de-assigned our tax procedure. So I'm going to reassign. See that it's changed because others who practice, they want to practice, and they'll come and assign. One country code can have only one procedure. So I assign this one. So go back here. Now let me create the tax code. Tax code is V1 FTXP. Country is IN. The V1 is the tax code which I want to create. 5% input tax GST, IGST. So it's a tax type is V because it's input. Okay. Here now it's the new line which we added. Input tax VST is added here. Something is already there. You can just enter, delete it and enter 5%. So I'm telling the system now 5% to be calculated on V1 tax code. That's what I said. Just save it. So finally, come and assign the GL account. So for the VST, if you have to come down, the chart of account is B-21. So I'm asking the system. So select tax code and save it first. I want system should calculate based on tax codes. If V1 is used for the purpose of transaction, then it should post to this CLR and save it. The final step, OBZT, go to company code, find the country code and assign this tax code, whichever you created newly, V1. Done. So what is next? The next one is we have to test the entry. So how can I test? I go to FB60. It's a vendor transaction. And before that, I want to make sure. So as I'm posting the transaction to some GL accounts of the GST, so I need to make this printing and stationery, whatever the expenses GL which I use, I should make it as that expenses GL. Its category should be star here. That means this GL comes under tax category, so that when you are posting any transaction, system should ask for the taxes here. Go back. Now let me try the entry. BF121, that vendor code. So if I had 1,000 rupees and I go here and you find the tax codes, whichever is we created, V1 we created, and here the GL account is 5100, amount is 1,000 rupees, enter and simulate. Now you see this 20. Okay, save it. So I show you one more thing. Yesterday you faced one error that Gayatri was saying that okay, 500 rupees she entered and this system is showing 25 rupees difference. So that is the meaning of that one now. So here when I'm trying to post an entry, 500 rupees, just I'm taking the same 500 rupees. I'm going to post one more entry. What system is doing here? System is in at 500. It is showing the what is the 23 rupees 81 paisa is the value of GST, and 476 rupees is actual the printing and expenses cost. Generally, this is how in reality in real time we do. The bill is 500 rupees included tax. But in case if some time it is required to add the tax, like on 500 I want to add 5%. On 500 I want to add 5. Now it's 500 is included tax. If you want to add on 500 tax, so then you should click here in the edit option. There's one option is there. Right side you just come down and also come this side. So here we have an option that calculate taxes on net amount. What does it mean? If you click this, system will take that 500 as a base amount. It will add the tax. System will take 500 rupees as a base amount. It will add the tax to this. If you don't select this, it will include the tax within 500. That's the meaning of it. Now you see, if I click this and save this, you see this. Now it's showing 25 rupees difference to me. So I need to add 25 rupees to vendor payment. That's the meaning of it. Save it. Got it? Nagalakshmi and Arshita and everyone.
Yes, sir.
So now let us go to the next part. So we understood that how we can do this IGST, a single line. I already said what is actually a CGST SGST concept. That means if it's IGST means the tax value whatever is done, it is going to be accounted to a single GL. If it's a CGST SGST, in case the taxes is going like the buyer and trader in the same state, so like it is as per the accounting GST accounting, the seller or a buyer of that's the, like seller. Let me take selling example. CGST SGST. The buyer and seller should be in the same. If they are in the same state, then the accounting should go like this. If they are in the different state, it should go like this. Now we understood if the buyer and seller is in the different state, we understood how to do this IGST on sales. But if it's in the different state, sorry, in the same state, then it has to account like this CGST in a different account because government expect that should be in a separate account. Now we have to create the configuration. If I select if the buying and selling in the same state that I am supposed to calculate, system should calculate like this. So what I want to do again to for the CGST SGST, I'm talking about sales now. I'm talking about sales. I need to add two more condition types for CGST SGST sales. Okay, two more condition type. But the condition types already there. We are already there. You can select those condition types only. So if you go to the system, in OBQ3, the two condition types which manually I entered, if you go inside, so wherever you find, we can create our own condition type, but don't go for it right now. What you can do now, very simple. You find some output condition types like this, AAC, AAI, AACA, like this you find. You may select it, it may not need to be like this only, it can be different also. Okay, so my suggestion very simple. You find this output tax code wherever is mentioned output CGST, SGST or something like this. Say for example, you see AB, ABOC, CGST, ABOS, SGST. Just select this ABOC and ABST. What you can do, I'm going to create now. You see that. Go to the new entries. Add fourth line and fifth line. Add 0 again and take the conditions. As I mentioned, you can select this OBOC, OB, sorry, ABOC here. For CGST, ABOC, and for SGST, ABOS. It may not be the same, but MWS, MWAS, and then WBVS, whichever we use, that will be there mandatorily in every system. It's a SAP standard. These things you can select whichever is suitable, just like this. And here again enter 1 and 1. And parallelly come here under accounting for CGST and SGST. C means OBOC means CGST. OBOS means it's 0S, not OS. S means SGST. You can go inside and you can select the tag codes. But if it is not this one, what you can do very simple. You can give the same MWS here. Enter. Save it. I give the same MWS. I tell you how to assign the accounts. Come now. Come back. And you don't need to assign the tax procedure again because tax procedure just now we assigned. The next one is we have to create the tax code. So now you see this in FTXP. I'm going to create A2 for and A2 tax code. A1 for this one. Now I used OB0C and AB0S. And the tax accounting key which I used here MWS and MWS. And here I'm creating for both of these I'm creating a single code, that is A2. So at 5%. So for these two I'm going to assign the GL accounts. So 16. So here the common thing is we created two uh, conditions and two accounting key we assigned, and we created one single tax code because we at the time of transactions posting we select this tax code, but system is calculate 5%, but it has to post two GLs dividing 50%. I'm going to tell you how. So let me go to FTXP A2, enter, and it's 5% output CGST SGST, and it's again A, enter, and here you find the two line items which we just created. We got the both. You see AB0C and AB0. So what I'm going to do here, instead of here we mentioned for IGST A1 5%, system calculated 5, and it's already, if something is activated in blue, if something is already activated in blue, you have to deactivate that line if it is not required. So I clicked on deactivate by clicking this so that it's deactivated. Now everything is deactivated. Here I'll mention the 2.5%. I want CGST should be calculated 2.5% and SGST should calculate 2.5%, total 5%. Save it. Now go back. The final step is OB40. So MWS. So go down. MWS is here. Double click. Use the same chart of account. And here, if I do this A2, then it should post to this GL account. It should post to this GL account. But if I do the same thing A2 again, it cannot be. So that means what I am trying to tell, I purposefully use these two lines. One. See, if you want to identify separate GL with the combination of tax code, then Yeah, if it is a single line, you should have separate accounting key. You cannot use the same that one. Just like a separate accounting code, right? You can use the same accounting code with this one, but you should have separate. If it is a single line, you should have separate accounting key. I cannot use the same. So what I'm trying to tell. So if I give the A2 again, I cannot give the same GL here, this GL, because single tax code. If I have the different code, I can say if you're using A2, then you should have to post to this GL account as SGSG. But if I use the same code here, system shows that it already exists. So what you should do here, go back, just understand this. This is okay. This is say you save it. Go to OB40. That's OBQ3. Sorry. Find tax code. So what I'm trying to tell, if it is a single tax code, then you must have separate accounting key for different GLs. That's the duty of accounting key. It is going to find a different GL. If it's a single GL means I can use the same one single line item only. Now I go and select a different accounting key. MWS you can assign, or you can create a different one, or you can assign different one also. Say for example, we have CGST, ABO and ABS is there. ABO and ABS. I can go here and I can select this AB, yes, SGST. Okay, so that means this is a different accounting key now. Save it. You don't need to change the tax code. Now we go here, go to OB40 and find that ABS. Select the tax code, save it. Now you tell again A2. Again I am doing A2, but this time I am selecting this here. So I repeat the things. You'll understand. What did I do now? So first I selected these two condition types. So for that I assigned the same thing. But the problem was, as is these two lines are a single tax code entry that is going to be divided into 2.5%, 2.5%. I want system should find out two separate GL account per lines. Then I'm supposed to use separate accounting key. The duty of accounting key is to find out the GL accounts. So if I use the same accounting key for the same tax code, I can assign only one GL. That's the reason I changed this to ABO, sorry, ABS. Now for this A2, what did I do in OB40? First I selected this MWS and assigned this GL account. For same A2, I assigned in ABS this GL account. Finally, go to OBZT, enter the country and add the tax code what you created. Save it. So let us try to post an sales entry. I add 1,000 rupees and I remove this net calculate on net basis. I don't want that to be there. I want it should include it. Calculate tax. Here I have two options, A1 and A2. You know that if I select A1, if I select A1 and I posting this one, 1,000 rupees, system is going to like add one single line item. You can see this in simulation. You notice here 16013 IGST calculated, 47 rupees to 62 paise. If I come back and select the different tax code A2, here also I change A2. That means I want it's an internal state. It's not interstate, intrastate. Then intrastate sale. Then if I do this simulation now, the same 5% is divided into CGST, SGST. That is 23 rupees 81 paise, 23 rupees 80, divided into two parts. The same value. It's showing in a different account. Getting my point? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All of you? All of you. Nice. That's it. Save it. So now for the same thing for input tax. So I want to add these to GL for input. If it is a sales is purchases are happening within the state, and what we should do, we should calculate CGST, SGST. So what we are going to do, again I'm going to add two more condition type and two more keys, and I can add one code and I can select the GL. So what I do, I select two codes which are input, which are two condition types. First go to OBQ3, find the procedure, go to new entries, it's 5 line items is done, go to new entries and go to 6, 0 and condition type. You can select whichever is input, just like this AB0C is there, right? Like that. Let me select something input here. ABIO and IABIS. There's a CGST, SGST is there. You can select whichever you want. I'll select this. So this is for ABIO and also ABIS. 701 accounting key. One accounting key you can use the same VST. If you don't want, you can select, a different accounting key as well. I shall tell you. I'm going to select a different accounting key for both. For input CGST, SGST, um, it's a 3-digit code. You can select like this. We have here, uh, see here, CGST and SGST is there. That is AAC and AAS is there. I select this CGST, AAC and AAS. You choose whatever you want. It's not restricted, but it should be input only. Select this and save it now. Now after doing this, go back and go to FTXP. I do create a tax code called V2. So here I selected AB, AAS, AAC and AAS. Here it's also 5% and the GL accounts are going to be these two. Let me go to FTXP and create this V2. So it is input 5% input. So go inside and select its V and click OK. So now by default it's coming here. You can select, you can just click here and click on the deactivate, because I am not going to do IGST now. I want to do this input CGST SGST. I am telling now system, if I use V2, system should calculate 2.5%, 2.5% of this input tax. So now it's activated. Save it. Finally, go back to OB40 and assign this GL OB40. So in OB40, we are using this AAC here based on tax code. Save it. If I use V2, system should post to this GL account. Save it. Posting key not there. So posting sometimes if you get this error, posting key is not defined when you're using any code. What you should do now, you have to click on this posting key. So just cancel this entry. Go to OB40 again. If you get that posting key error, OB40, sometimes you may get. Go to AAC. First click on this posting key. Enter 40 and 50. Debit is 40 and the credit is 50. Save it. Then click on accounts. Then you can enter this. V2, if I use V2, then you should enter this GL account. Okay. Save it. Go back and for AAS also. First select tax code. Save it. First check out posting key. If it is not there, enter this and save it. Then go to accounts and enter. If I use V2 for SGST, it should post to this GL account and save it. Now finally go to OBZT. Go to new entries, enter V2, save it. Let us check the entry in FB60. Let me select the vendor. ₹1,000. So I have two options. One is IGST. If I select IGST here, obviously it will create one line. Simulate. It's created ₹47 one line. That is IGST input. But if I select I2 V2, it will generate two lines, the same amount, 2381. So IGST, sorry, CGST input and SGST input. That's it. So feel easy or difficult? Understood, Deepa, Nagalakshmi, Arshita?
Yes, sir.
ಎಲ್ಲ ಎಸ್
Once
ಅಂತೀರಾ?
practice,
Huh? See, last week, why
practice
didn't
ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತು.
yes, why didn't I last week tell everything together taxation? Because see, adding these things may not be very clear. If you practice once, now then you understand what I am doing here. If I add tag ports and other things, you may not clarity. But practicing and explanation is very much important. Practice karo. If you're not like also try to explain yourself what you're doing, so then it makes easy to understand. Got it?
Yes, sir. But being little difficult, like confusing. If I practice once, it might answer me.
See, one more thing I tell you. In real time, actually, we don't do this activity, the taxes. So tax procedures generally handled by sales consultant. But we are going to assign the GL account, how it had to get posted. But we should know how it works, right, to assign the GL account. If you don't know how it works, how you are going to assign the GL? You have to ask, okay, what is this? What is this with sales consultant? He will create till this procedure and other things, everything he'll create, and he'll leave this. We are responsible to make sure that the entries are getting posted as per the requirement. There are many calculations will be there. This is very simple calculations which you are doing. This is the basic idea. So unless if the sales consultants are not implemented, that the company is not implementing sales and distribution module or MM, then we are responsible to do this activity. Okay. In interview, they may ask you who has done this tax procedure like that. You have to tell that it's done by sales, and actually GL assignment we have done like that. So there's one thing left here. So Arshita, Nagalakshmi, is it clear? Shall I go ahead? There's don't worry about the steps. There's steps you can see this and know do it. Understand the logic. Nagalakshmi,
Sir,
yes.
sir, if
You check your network, please, Nagalakshmi. Yes, not getting. Yes, didn't get your question, Nagalakshmi. No, not at all getting your voice itself. Mention in chat. Now there is one thing left in this taxation. Okay, that is a reverse charge mechanism. RCM we call it. We call RCM. That means reverse charge mechanism. What is this actually? RCM. Yes, quickly. In GST only we get this reverse charge mechanism. See, reverse charge mechanism means, so at the time of purchases, so you have seen this entry. This is the purchase entry with GST. What's the duty of a vendor here? So vendors, actually the value of vendor is 100 rupees. He is going to collect extra 5 rupees and he is supposed to pay this to government. Right? This is the duty of vendor. So there are some type of vendors where government is recognized. There are some type of companies or vendors government recognized and identified, saying that in case of your transactions falls under, in case of your transactions falls under GST, that means the GST need to be calculated if you are purchasing something. But that vendor, the vendor which you are paying, purchasing, if he is falls under this category, RCM. What is that RCM? What government says? Instead of paying to the vendor when you are purchasing, instead of paying to the vendor that 5 rupees, don't pay to him. Instead, you only pay to the government. That's what government says. You don't pay him, you pay directly to me. That's what. Means there are some vendors they are not supposed to take. Example, this HR consulting companies. Those companies are if it falls under partnership or sole enterprises, so those companies are not supposed to collect the GST. So that there we have to use this reverse charge mechanism. Reverse charge mechanism means instead of paying to the vendor, instead of paying to the vendor the tax amount, the purchasing company supposed to pay the tax amount to government. Okay, we are supposed to pay to the government. So what was happening in this scenario? So we used to post one asset GL that we know already. If I take example of this IGST, so we used to put a GL account that is vendor used to yes, of course. So vendor will pay to the government. From government we used to deduct this from the collected tax, right? So now the value of 5 rupees which we were paying to the vendor used to pay to the government. From government we used to take it back. So we were keeping here that 5 rupees. But now instead of paying to the vendor we don't pay that 105 rupees. We pay only 100 rupees only. But 5 rupees we are supposed to pay to the government, so that we have to create a GST liability. That means 5 rupees liability we will only create. Liability means what does it mean? We suddenly we don't whenever the transaction happens, we don't directly go and pay to the government. We collect for a month and we pay to the government once in a month. That's what. So that we keep this in this jail. So I instead of paying to the government, sorry vendor, I retained that 5 rupees and I'm paying to the government. Then again I can take it back from again deduction from the this one. That's what we generally we do here. That means at the time of RCM, if the vendor is not eligible to do this activity, we are supposed to retain that for like tax amount and pay to the government, and we can deduct from the tax what we paid in the next month. So that is what the government instruction. Got it? Got the idea what is actually RCM? It's very much important. Is it clear theoretically? Yes, Nagalakshmi Arshita. Is it clear or not? Is it clear? Say me in chat if you are not able to talk. See, you have to make sure that the network is good, Nagalakshmi and Arshita. Okay, because we are talking for the classes. We should make sure that networking. Hmm? Yes, please mention me in chat whether it's clear or not. Arshita and Nagalakshmi. I cannot keep talking tell me, tell me, tell me. You have to mention in chat at least whether it's yes or no, or else what's your doubt or something. If you talk. What about Arshita? You there or not, Arshita? You mention in chat. I cannot hear you, please. See, be friendly and be clear. You don't need to be diplomatic here. Okay, and Deepa, is it clear? RCM mechanism.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me show you how we can achieve this in SAP. If the RCM, if the transaction is RCM. So for this, as it's a IGST, I'll take example of IGST in RCM only. Okay, I take example of IGST in RCM. IGST liability, IGST paid. That means that is purchase tax. So for this, I can give a separate GL account. That's also possible. Generally, in real time, we give the separate GL account for this for RCM GLs. What I do, I go to FS00 first. I create two GLs. I am going to take only example of IGST. I don't show CGST, SGST. So under this other current liability, I have this output IGST already there. I copy this and I change it to 14. And only thing is here I'll add RCM output, reverse charge mechanism output GL. That's it. Other things are the same. Same way I create under other liability, other current assets. I copy this. I do it 14. Here also I'll say RCM input. Save it. Now, so these are the two GLs which I identified to process these transactions. So I create a tax code for RCM. I create a tax code RCM R1 for 5%. And the GL accounts which I identified is two GLs need to be posted. That is these two GLs. 240014. Another is 160013. 14, sorry. So this is for 5% again. This is also a single tax code. So the condition types, I don't want any new condition type. Can anyone tell me why? I don't want any new condition type. So why don't I require condition types? Because I'm doing IGST, CGST, SGST. That means I'm taken IGST. For IGST, we already have the condition type for this. So for that, we are adding multiple tax code. What Nagalakshmi said. Nagalakshmi, I'm asked one question here. If I want to create 9%, so it's going to be CGST 9%, 9%. Yes. See, the tax codes are related to the percentage. That means if you want to create a new tax code of 18%, maybe IGST or CGST, SGST, you require to add one more tax code, but you don't need to require any conditions because conditions are going to work for IGST, CGST, SGST. That's what the conditions. For within IGST, SGST, we have different tax codes. The tax codes are identified using the percentages are identified using tax codes. That means when you want to add any more tax codes, you don't need to go for additional condition types. You can add because RCM is also IGST, SGST. Only thing is, as it should not pay to the vendor, it has to retain in our business itself. We have to pay to the government. That's what the adding we have to create our own liability. So because of that already is there. So what we are going to do, we don't need to create any conditions for remaining already IGST condition type. So that RCM also I'll add this condition type. Within this, I'm going to create one. That means I directly go to FTXP. I don't go for anything. I create R1 here. Now you see here what I'm doing. So 5% output RCM output tax. It's A. It's a sales tax, which sorry, it's B. It's a purchase tax. RCM will only come for purchases. So what's happening here? System is taken with this both are one. So but this is what actually correct one. I tell you how. So 5% now I am telling if I use this R1, what system should do? 5% generally, whatever it is generally calculate 5% for input VST, that is MWVS, it should calculate. But also additionally, it has to calculate 5% liability because vendor should not get added. That is going to be minus. It will minus the vendor 5%. That means 5%. That's the minus mark is there. Enter 5% here, 5% here, and save it. And go back and add the GL accounts here. So OB40. If I use this R1, what system I am going to tell? I use the same VST here, same VST. But as it's VST as well as this also I need to add this both because it's going to calculate IGST for liability as well as this one. So I use this VST first. I add this 16100. Sorry, it is reversed here. Hmm? This should be on the top and this should be 1600. What is this? VST means it's input. It's assets GL. Go down. VST is here. I'm telling the system now. If I use R1 for VST, it should post to this GL 240014. Same way, if I use R1 again with MWS, if I use R1 here, it should post to this GL account 1600. So I repeat the things. So what did I do here? I'm creating an R1. R1 means what? It's a reverse charge mechanism. Generally, we are going to add, this is the generally line which we add with the tax, general tax. Okay. So now, as it's RCM means some of the vendors are not supposed to collect the tax. So in that case, if the say purchasers comes under tax category, we are responsible not to pay to that vendor the tax if that vendor is identified is not eligible. We have to pay the only the goods value. But it doesn't mean that the tax should not go to government. We have to pay to the government instead of vendor. We are paying to the government we only because we are paying only 100 to him. At the same time, we create this. That means we only pay and we only deduct. That's what we are going to do. But it's compulsory that government we have to do like this. So now generally it's going to add like this. So and the vendor is minus 5, minus 5%. So we are creating this one. For this, I'm going to create an R1 tax code in FTXP. Under R1, I'm not only creating this, I'm adding a sales. It's a V, it's an input tax, but for output tax, that means for sales tax also minus 5 I'm writing. That means it is reducing vendor and adding 5% the line. So for this, I assigned the GL account for this R1 because R1 is created under MWS and VST. So in OB40, for MWS, I added. If I use R1, it should post to 16100114 a liability. At the same time, for VST, I added 24100 for R1. So now after doing this, finally go to OBZT, add this code, save it. Now let us test the entry. Go to FB60, the same entry I take. ₹1,000 I'll take. See here, normally if I take 5100 and the tax code V1, that is IGST, what system will do? I should add here also V1. What system will do? So it's create in separate line. We are paying vendor ₹1,000. I'll make it better adding. That means I'll add on net taxes because it will be very clear to you. Calculated tax. That means I'm adding the taxes. ₹50 is there. It's showing ₹50 difference. That means I should pay to the vendor ₹50 extra. The taxes. Now you see here, ₹1,000 is the purchase value. I'm adding 1,050 rupees extra to the vendor. Vendor will pay. It's a normal transaction. ₹50 is taxes. I'm keeping in asset GL so that I can deduct from collected tax. If I go back and select it to R1, reverse chargement, because vendor is not eligible to collect this tax. We have to supposed to pay to the government. So what system will doing? It keeps that one the same. Here you see vendor we are not supposed to pay extra. We have to pay only ₹1,000 only, because it keep that ₹50 less. That means the same in input, but it also create, instead of vendor it's reduced to only 1,000. We are paying ₹1,000 vendor and we are purchasing 1,000. We only create these two line items. One is output that I am supposed to pay to the government. Another one is I am have to collect from the government. I hope it is clear now.
Yes, sir.
Everybody clear? Okay, Arshita. Please listen to this again. I know that little bit confusion will be there in the beginning. Your assignment is you have to create a separate already created separate company code. You have to create 5%, 12%, 18%, and also 28% taxes for both input and output. Also, all this for RCM. This is mandatory. You have to do this. You have to create. I have created one code and I showed you. You have to add. Use your skills how to add. Then your understanding will be clear. Okay, you got the assignment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.